Well, hello, everybody. My name is Brian Rakita, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Quality Certification Services. I'm joined by a few of my colleagues today. We'll give this about a minute before we get started, but maybe I'll just do a little bit of introduction over that minute. As I said, I'm Brian Rakita, and I'm Chief Operating Officer at QCS. To contact me, you can give me an email at brian@qcsinfo.org. Also doing our presentation today, there will be Leslie Touzeau, who is our Organic Policy Manager. We also have Marielle Mackin, who is our Service and Support Manager, and Beth Rhoda, who is our Organic Program Director here. We're here to discuss the Strengthening Organic Enforcement Regulation, which, as I'm sure Leslie will tell you very soon, is a major update to the NOP final rule, and so it's going to affect a lot of our producers, from crop to handlers to and also a lot of people who aren't currently certified will be affected by it as well. So we will, Leslie will be going into the details here. So I'll let Leslie take it from here.
Great, thank you, Brian. And welcome everyone. My name is Leslie Touzeau, as Brian said. I'm the Organic Policy Manager for QCS. And I'm going to talk today about the Strengthening Organic Enforcement Rule. This is the new big rule coming from the USDA NOP. I'm going to spend a little bit of time. There we go. I'm going to spend a little bit of time today talking just kind of strengthening organic enforcement basics, what the rule is, where it came from, the purpose of the rule. We'll go over some key concepts and terminology to keep in mind, and then I'll move into talking about exemptions. This is one of the first sections of the rule that specifically lays out who needs to be certified, who doesn't need to be certified, what those types of operations are that don't need to be certified, and any kind of requirements for documentation or record keeping from those exempt operations. So I'll talk for a little while, and we should have plenty of time at the end for questions. I won't be monitoring the chat much as I go, so if you don't mind either typing your questions in and I'll get to them at the end, or save your questions for the end, and we should have plenty of time to get to you. All right, so what is the Strengthening Organic Enforcement Final Rule? So I'm going to refer to this rule sometimes as Strengthening Organic Enforcement and sometimes as SOE. So SOE was published on January 19th of this year by the USDA National Organic Program. And this is the biggest change to organic regulations since the creation of the National Organic Program. So this is a big sweeping rule. This comprehensive rule strengthens oversight of the production, handling, and sale of organic products by improving farm to market traceability, tracking production of an agricultural product all the way to its final retail point of sale. It also is also strengthening the oversight on imports and provides robust enforcement of the organic regulations. So in other words, this rule is meant to close gaps in the supply chain that have left organic products open to mishandling and fraud. And it's attempting to tighten up the supply chain in order to preserve organic integrity of our organic products. So all operations and certifiers need to comply with these new regulations by March 19th of 2024, so a little over a year. So this includes current certified operations, as well as uncertified operations that are required to become certified as a result of this rule. So we'll talk about what some of those operations are. But this means that those new entities that will need certification will need to start the process of certification well before March 19th, so that the certifiers who will be certifying them have the time to conduct a full review of their operation. So why is SOE needed now? Well, the organic market is growing. the global organic food and beverage market has hit $180 billion in 2021, and it's predicted to continue growing, which is a good thing for us here in the organic industry. But with a growing market comes increasingly complex global supply chains, and that can lead to more opportunities for mishandling, unintentional mishandling of products, or intentional organic fraud. So there's already been numerous documented cases with millions of dollars worth of fraudulent sales where operations are selling product as organic that has not been handled, produced, or managed organically. So in 2018, the 2018 Farm Bill included specific provisions to strengthen the organic program in response to this growing market. And so the NOP has identified some of these gaps and some of these weaknesses in the supply chain that have the potential to lead to fraud. So SOE, it's needed to strengthen that enforcement, to protect the organic integrity of our organic products, and to preserve the reputation of that USDA organic seal. Okay, so when organic regulations were first published in 2000, the organic market was very small and products were sold mostly locally, and supply chains tended to be short and relatively simple. But like I mentioned, the organic sector is booming, which is a good thing for us. And the supply chains have grown much more complex. So I wanted to go through an example with you that demonstrates the complexity of supply chains for a single ingredient like organic eggs, which really starts with the production of organic corn. So this example actually comes straight out of the summary of the new rule. And it's a really good one because I think it shows the multiple hands that a single ingredient product might go through in a supply chain. And it's a good way to kind of wrap your head around why SOE is going to be such a change and why it's an important change for organic integrity. So let's take a look at a supply chain that would have been possible before SOE. So we start with a certified organic farm that's producing organic corn. And that corn is then transported via an uncertified truck to a local grain elevator, where it's aggregated with other organic corn from other local farms. Okay, then an uncertified commodity trader buys that corn, and that corn is transported to an uncertified storage facility. Then that certified organic grain supplier buys the corn from the commodity trader, but they stay anonymous, and instead they use an uncertified broker to facilitate that transaction. The grain supplier then stores the corn, and maybe they buy some imported organic corn that they purchase from an importer, and they mix that with that corn. Then a certified feed processor purchases the organic corn from that grain supplier and combines it with other organic ingredients like soybean meal, other agricultural ingredients to make organic chicken feed. Then a certified organic egg producer purchases that chicken feed for their organic flock. They sell their organic eggs to an uncertified distributor, and then that uncertified distributor sells the organic eggs to a retail establishment for a final sale. So this is just one example of a single ingredient and its journey through the organic supply chain, and it shows how complex these chains can be. That corn is handled by multiple entities, some who, with the previous rule, did not need to be certified organic, and therefore are considered kind of a weak point in the chain where mishandling of organic product or even fraudulent activity could have snuck in. So you can see with SOE that there is kind of an attempt to locate these weak points in the chain, tighten them up so that we can ensure the organic integrity of organic products down the entire line. Okay, so we aren't going to tackle all of the amendments in the final rule today. It's a 282-page document. It covers all kinds of things, including rules on import certificates, certifier and inspector personnel training requirements, producer groups, and supply chain traceability requirements, just to name a few of the sections. Dr. Jenny Tucker, the Deputy Administrator of the National Organic Program, did a really nice webinar overview of the rule a few weeks ago. And at the end of this presentation, I can drop a link in the chat to those slides that are publicly available online right now. And that's a good place to go to get a a really holistic picture of the entire rule straight from the NOP. And we hope to cover some more of these topics in more depth for future presentations as we kind of learn how these changes will specifically affect our clients and our QCS policies and procedures. But I did want to lay out a few key concepts to remember as you're learning more about SOE, because you'll see these terms come up over and over again, and I'll be talking a lot about them today. The first is organic integrity. I've already mentioned this phrase a couple times today, but this is essentially the attributes that make a product organic. So a product that fully complies with the USDA organic regulations has integrity, and its organic qualities have not been compromised due to contamination or commingling or what have you. Next is organic fraud. I've also mentioned this briefly, but this is the deceptive representation, sale, or labeling of a product as organic when it's not organic or its organic integrity has been compromised in some way. Other key concepts to remember: audit trail. This is part of kind of the supply chain traceability, but this is documentation that's going to help you determine the source, the transfer of ownership, and any transportation of an organic agricultural product as it goes through that supply chain. And then supply chain traceability, this is identifying the movement, the sale, and the organic status of an agricultural product from organic production all the way to the end of the supply chain. So these are concepts that are going to come up over and over again as we talk about exemptions today and as we talk about SOE in general. Okay, so the rule has several new definitions. One of the major kind of revised definitions is the definition of handle. So you can see the old definition of handle here in the previous regulations. This revised definition includes many more examples of handling activities and adds activities like importing and exporting, which were not in the old definition, as well as repackaging, labeling, receiving, loading, and several others. So this revised definition will help us determine whether or not an operation is engaging in handling activities and whether or not they are exempt from certification. So keep this definition in mind. It's going to be really important as we move along and talk about who needs to be certified and who doesn't need to be certified. Okay, so here are some of the major changes related to who must be certified once SOE is officially implemented. First, any operation that is buying, selling, receiving, storing, or loading unpackaged organic products that are not sealed in tamper-proof packaging must be certified. Second, operations that are exempt do not need certification. They do not need to maintain an OSP or be inspected, but they must comply with all other organic regulations. And we have to be able to track that, and they have to maintain records saying as much. Next, storage facilities that are receiving unpackaged products must be certified. So if you remember from the definition of handle, receiving is now considered a handling activity and therefore must be certified if the organic product is not sealed in a tamper-proof packaging. And we'll talk a little bit more about tamper-proof packaging here in a bit. Finally, exporting is now specifically mentioned in the definition of handling. So exporters must also be certified. Okay. So who else needs to be certified? Well, odds are if you are certified now, if you are a certified operation now, you will still need to be certified. The NOP has made it clear that when in doubt, the default should lean towards certification, because when more entities are certified along the supply chain, the risk of fraud will decrease. So the rule still states that any operation that produces or handles agricultural products should be certified organic. So this includes operations whose activities fall under the new definition of handle. It also includes activities where there is physical contact with organic products like combining, repackaging, labeling, storing, receiving, and also activities where there's not necessarily any physical contact, like selling, trading, facilitating trade, and importing into the US. So for example, some operations that often conduct these activities and that must now be certified include operations like grain elevators, warehouses that are labeling or culling or repackaging products, and bakeries or kitchens that are serving grocery chains. they will all need to be certified organic. I'm going to channel Jenny Tucker here for a second and take a drink of water. All right. So I'm going to jump in and talk about who does not need to be certified. These are going to be the operations that we will consider exempt. Excuse me. So the SOE rule allows for a limited number of operations whose activities are considered low risk and are therefore less likely to comprise organic integrity. They can be exempt. So this first category of exempt operations is small producers and handlers. These are operations with gross income for organic sales of no more than $5,000 per year. And this is not a new exemption. This has been the rule for some time. Exempt small operators do not require organic certification. They don't need an inspection, but they must follow all other organic regulations, including the requirements to document prevention of commingling with conventional products and contamination by prohibited substances. They are also not allowed to market their products as certified organic or use the USDA organic seal. The next category of exempt operations is retail establishments. So the SOE rule has improved upon the definition of retail establishments by adding more examples of the types of operations that are considered retail establishments. In order to qualify for this exemption, you must first determine if you fall under the definition of retail establishment, which includes restaurants, delis, bakeries, grocery stores, and businesses with restaurants, delis, or other types of eat-in or carry-out sales of raw or processed agricultural products. This definition does include farmers markets, CSAs, and farm stands. There are a few caveats. So operations conducting only wholesale business, that is selling product from their business to another business, do not qualify. And operations with only virtual sales also do not qualify. So you also must have a physical location where product can be sold directly to the consumer. So if your operation meets the criteria of a retail establishment, you may qualify for an exemption to certification. If a portion of your operation meets the criteria of a retail establishment, then that portion can be exempt. So for example, if you are an organic vegetable producer selling products at a farmer's market, your production still needs to be certified organic, but the farmer's market handling doesn't need to be certified as a handling operation. It would be considered a retail establishment that would be exempt. Now, before we move on, I just want to refresh everyone's memory on the definition of processing because it's going to come up with these next two exemptions. This definition did not change in SOE, but the activity of processing may help determine whether or not your operation is exempt and what the exemption requirements are. So processing is considered a particular type of handling. It includes, among many other activities, things like cooking, heating, cutting, freezing, and packaging in containers. So retail establishments that do not process. There are two different exemptions for retail establishments in the new SOE rule. One exemption is for retail establishments that process agricultural products, and one exemption is for establishments that do not process. So if a retail establishment is selling directly to the consumer and does not process, that operation can conduct other handling activities without certification. So for instance, you could have an operation that's removing produce from a shipping crate, washing that produce, and putting it into a store display case. Another example would be opening bags of oats and transferring those oats into a bulk dispenser in a co-op or a grocery store. These are handling activities that are not considered processing. So unlike some of the other exemptions we're going to talk about, retail establishments selling directly to a consumer and not processing their products may continue to use the USDA organic seal and the certifier logo in labeling and marketing. This is the only exemption where that is true. So keep that in mind as I continue to talk about some of these other exemptions. Next, retail establishments where processing activities are taking place can still be exempt from certification. In order to qualify for this exemption, the organic products must be processed and sold at the same physical location. So this could include repackaging bulk containers of cherry tomatoes into individual clamshells for retail sale at a grocery store, or preparing ready-to-eat meals at a farmer's market and selling them from your market stall. So in both cases, processing is happening, but the processing is happening in the same location where that product is being sold. So retail establishments who process, unlike retail establishments that do not process, retail establishments who process may not use the USDA organic seal on labeling and cannot represent the processed products as certified organic. So this exemption also does not include retail establishments that sell product processed off-site. So for example, if deli meats are sliced at a central processing facility and then transported to a deli, that central processing facility would need to be separately certified in order to sell the deli meats as certified organic. So this is a situation where, because that product is processed, the slicing of the deli meats is processed off-site and sold at a different location, both of those entities would need to be certified organic. All right, moving on to other examples. So other handling operations that may qualify for an exemption from certification include operations that handle only products with less than 70% organic ingredients, and operations that only identify organic ingredients on the product information panel. So this is not new policy either. And like most other exempt operations, these operations may not represent products as certified organic, and they cannot use the USDA organic seal. Okay, the next group of handling operations that may qualify for an exemption are operations that sell, distribute, or store, or prepare for shipment packaged organic products. So the movement of sealed organic products, things that are in sealed containers or packaging, this is considered a low-risk activity, since the risk of contamination and commingling is decreased because you have a sealed package. So in this case, this means products that are in sealed tamper-evident packaging, or this means containers that it is clear when that packaging has been opened. So in order to qualify for this exemption, product must remain in the same sealed packaging. And examples of these types of operations that may be exempt are things like storage warehouses, cold storage facilities that only are receiving and storing packaged products before shipping them to another entity. So just an aside about tamper-evident packaging. Tamper-evident packaging is defined in the new rule as a package or container that is sealed in a manner where an attempt to break the seal or get at the contents or reclose the package would be obvious. So some examples would be produce boxes that have "do not tamper with" tape across the box flap. So if the box was open, you would be able to see that the tape was broken. Sealed bags of flour or sealed drums of olive oil. These would all be tamper-evident packaging or containers. Okay, so this next exemption is a little bit different from the previous exemption. It also is also dealing with the storage of packaged products, but it's slightly different from the previous exemption in that it allows for the buying and selling of packaged products. But those packaged products must already be labeled for retail sale. So stay with me as I give this example. And actually, let me take a drink of water before I get into it. Okay, so in the previous slide, I mentioned olive oil in sealed drums. So olive oil contained in tamper-proof drums can be received, stored, and prepared for shipment by a facility, and that facility does not need to be certified organic. However, if a distributor buys those drums of oil, they would need to be certified organic because the olive oil is not labeled and in its final retail packaging. And because that distributor is buying, not just receiving or storing, that's why they would have to be certified organic. Now, if a distributor were to buy flats of olive oil that were bottled already and labeled for retail sale, then the distributor could be exempt from certification. So in order for an operation that buys or sells organic olive oil to be exempt from certification, the olive oil needs to already be bottled and labeled for retail sale. This specific exemption is meant mostly for distributors, but it may also cover some like brand name owners, sales brokers, or other entities that are purchasing product in their final retail packaging. And again, remember that these two exemptions do not cover unpackaged products. Any buying or selling of unpackaged products would require organic certification. Okay. Oh, and yeah, I just wanted to mention, I was talking before about preparing for shipment, and I wanted to give some context of what that meant. The new rule does define preparing for shipment as any activity performed on sealed packaged organic product. And it can include things like applying a tracking number, shrink wrapping cartons to a pallet, loading and unloading packaged products onto transport vehicles, breaking down pallets of packaged products. That's just some to name a few. There's additional examples in the rule. Okay, finally, the last category of exempt operations are brokers that are facilitating the movement and storage of products for a third party, but they're never actually taking ownership or physical possession of organic agricultural product, and therefore are considered low risk. So this could be customs brokers who are facilitating the entry of products into the US by helping with the import documentation, helping with filing. These entities are exempt from certification as long as they're not doing any other handling activities. Similarly, operations that only are arranging for storage or for movement of products, like logistics brokers who are facilitating the movement and storage for a third party, these entities would also be exempt from certification. But if they are conducting any type of other handling besides just facilitating the movement of organic products, then they would need to be certified. Okay, so the new SOE rule makes clear that the transportation of organic products from one operation to the next or to the final retailer does not require certification. And we're talking about transportation only. So this includes activities like moving organic hay from a certified producer to a certified buyer, or moving organic beef, cattle from a certified operation to a certified slaughter facility. So there was a good example that was raised by a commenter to the SOE proposed rule before it was the final rule, asking about milk haulers. Do milk haulers need to be certified? And the NOP has said that a milk hauler could be exempt from certification if they only transport the milk, like they're moving it from a dairy to a processor, but in the process, that transporter is not processing or packaging the milk, because those would be considered other handling activities that would require certification. So the other thing to note about this is that loading and unloading of unpackaged products into a storage facility is not considered transportation. Transportation is only essentially the moving on a transport vehicle of product from one entity to another entity. Once it's reached its destination and it's loaded or unloaded, that is considered an activity that needs to be handled by a certified entity. Okay, I know this is a lot, and I hope I'm not going into too much detail, but I think it's important to know about how all these different exemptions work. So though these exempt operations do not require certification, meaning, like I said, they don't need to complete an OSP, they don't need to be annually inspected, there are still some requirements that they have to fulfill if they wish to stay in the organic supply chain. So except for the retail establishments that do not process, and so they have a different set of requirements that we've already discussed, except for those establishments, all other exempt operations need to follow the organic and handling requirements in the regulations. They need to demonstrate how they prevent commingling and contamination. They need to maintain records to show that their products were handled or produced organically. And they need to maintain records that verify any quantities of products that were purchased or sold. So these records are necessary to follow that audit trail that I talked about, and which you'll kind of remember is a key component of supply chain traceability. Exempt operations need to keep these records on hand, and they may be asked to show them to a representative of the secretary upon request. So they don't need to be showing them to a certifier necessarily, but they need to be maintaining those records just in case they need to be audited on the supply chain. Finally, exempt operations must follow the labeling requirements in the regulations. They must not sell, label, or represent products as certified organic, or use the USDA organic seal on their packaging or their marketing materials. And their products must not be represented as organic in a product processed by another operation. So they can't sell a product that is from an exempt operation to another operation that's making an organic processed product, and that can't be listed as, organic carrots on that product. Now, operations that are exempt don't have to be exempt if they don't want to. They are certainly welcome to get certified if they would like to market their products as certified organic and use that USDA organic seal on their products. Okay, so just to recap, who is exempt from certification in the new SOE rule? Well, you might qualify for exemption if you are a small producer with less than $5,000 annual gross sales, if you are a retail establishment with a physical location that does or does not process, if you handle only products with less than 70% organic ingredients, or only identify organic ingredients on the ingredient statement, or if you are an operation that receives or stores packaged products, if you are an operation that buys or sells packaged products that are in their labeled retail packaging, if you are a customs or logistics broker with no other handling activities, or if you are serving as exclusively transport between two entities. So if your operation does not fall into any of these categories, then you must be certified organic in order to produce and handle organic products. If you are not certified organic and you think you may need to be, or if you have uncertified operations in your supply chain that you think may now need to be certified, please reach out to us here at QCS, and we can help you figure out what you need to make sure you're in compliance and make sure that you have all the information that you need with the new SOE rule by the implementation date in March of 2024. So that was a lot. I'm sure there's some questions here, but I wanted to throw up my contact info here at the end. Thank you all for listening. I hope it was helpful for you and your operations. And let me know if you have questions.
And I will break in and say that we will try to answer questions if we can. But this is a very complex rule, and and a lot of times we may need to discuss some questions internally before we can confidently believe that we can give you a correct answer. There's almost as many different types of operations as there are operations. So if you do ask a question, we will do our best to give you our opinion, but we may defer and follow up with you later. I see in the chat, will this recording be available? Yes, we will. This recording will be available on the QCS YouTube channel. Very, very slight chance something will crash, but that happened one time in the last 2 years when I did this. So I don't want to say it won't happen, but I will try not to let that happen. And Beth, I see your hand.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I just wanted to add too that we anticipate tons of questions about whether particular types of operations or specific operations are exempt. And this is important for certified operations to know, because you may be currently purchasing products or ingredients from operators in the supply chain that will be required to be certified. And so it's important as the buyer, if you want to use those products, to make sure that all of those vendors that require certification are certified by March 19th of 2024. So we will make these slides available. And we're also working on a decision tree that we'll post on our website that can kind of help you walk through different scenarios and whether certification is required. And if you have questions that aren't answered, We can answer those via email. We can put up the email address for our client care specialist who will kind of be the expert on whether an operation needs to get certified or not. So.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat. And I just want to mention for everybody that there are the links to Dr. Tucker's presentation from the NOP on the SOE rule, and as well as a link to our social media page on our website where you'll be able to view this video. And let's see, so our questions are, our first question that has come in that hasn't already been answered was, how are offsite warehouses viewed?
Hold on one second here. I do too many things. Okay, so offsite warehouses as an entity that would be storing, here I can actually throw up this slide here. All right, are you able to see my screen again? Yeah, okay. So an offsite warehouse, if it's a facility that's storing packaged products, and this could be both, let's see, this could be both in sealed package containers that are kind of like bulk containers, or retail packaging. But if it's a packaged product, then an offsite warehouse could be considered exempt. If this warehouse is holding unpackaged ingredients, anything that's not in a sealed tamper evident package, then that storage facility would need to be certified.
Also, if it's just a warehouse, if it's buying or selling, it's I believe it would need to be certified also, even if they're packaged and sealed. Am I right?
If it's buying or selling, if the warehouse is buying or selling, then the only way that it would be able to be exempt is if that is in retail packaged products. Yeah. So that's the difference between, so essentially any kind of unpackaged product, any activity that's handling unpackaged products will need to be certified organic. If it is a packaged product that's being handled, it depends on what type of packaging, and it depends on if that product is just being stored or if it's being purchased or sold. So those are the differences between, say, this previous, let's see, this particular example and this exemption here, which is on receiving and storing, versus buying or selling. I know it's a lot of kind of little things to try and remember, but essentially, yeah, that's the bottom line for warehouses. It's going to depend on the type of packaging, if it's packaged, and if the warehouse is the purchaser of the product.
Thank you. Okay, next we have I understood that farmers, organic producers who sell at farmers markets are exempt from handler certification. Is that correct for Beth?
I believe that is. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, so farmers markets are considered a retail, by QCS, we consider farmers markets to be a retail operation. And so that would fall under the retail establishment exemption. One place where we've seen things a little bit tricky at farmers markets is that sometimes we may certify the farm and and they have a booth at a farmer's market, and they choose to also sell products that come from other farms at those farmers markets. And that's where things get a little tricky. They're allowed to sell things that come from other farms, but it's important that there's truth in labeling, and that products that come from other farms aren't being represented as being from their farm. So if there's a big logo on the farmer's market stand that says Beth's Organic Farm, and I'm selling products not from my own farm, but from somebody else's farm, then a handling certificate would be required because you're representing those products as being produced by your operation. So that operation would need to be certified if that labeling is representing it as organic as part of that certified operation, if that makes sense. But just selling at a farmer's market by itself doesn't require certification for the handler, as a handler. For the farm it does, but not as a handler.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, next question is currently we are sourcing new suppliers via brokers. The growers and manufacturers are certified, but our broker is not certified yet because it's new. How is the best way to approach? Do we just give them time to get certified?
I can take that one too. Yeah, they will need to be certified no later than March 19th of 2024 in order for your operation to continue sourcing products that are brokered by those brokers that are currently uncertified. Our current uncertified handler declaration form won't apply anymore. We'll be updating that form. I will say that we have a really nice resource available to operators like brokers that aren't doing any type of processing. It's called a simple organic handler plan. And so you can send them to QCS and we can get them set up with a simple organic handler plan that doesn't include all the sections of the OSP, that the organic system plan that cover the control points that would be for an operation that is handling organic products. It's simplified and only covers those, or processing. It doesn't cover processing, it only covers the handling aspects for buying, selling, trading, etc., that a broker might be engaged in. So the process isn't as, they don't have to sort out so much with the organic system plan what applies and what doesn't. And that's available currently on our website.
Thank you very much. Our next question, will cotton gins who are USDA and GOTS certified be exempt?
That is a good question. If, and maybe Beth or Brian can jump in here. I would say that they would only be exempt if they fall into any one of these several exempt categories. But I'm not going to say that I'm 100% sure on this. This might be a better question for Beth or Brian, or something that we can take back and figure out on our own.
I can say that I have a guess that I'm about 85% sure of, and I'll leave it there. But if you get back to us in writing, we will follow up with you on that. I don't know if Beth wants to be more brave than me.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the GOTS standards, and I think that if that operation isn't currently, I don't think that an gin that is actually handling and processing cotton would be exempt from NOP organic certification under the current regulation. But you did mention that they're USDA certified. So I'm not sure the context, but we would be happy to follow up on the specific context for that operation.
Thank you. Okay, we are organic certified. We are an organic certified coffee roaster. Our supplier is certified organic as well. How will this new rule affect us?
So if your operation is organic and your supplier is organic, then you don't have to worry about any of these exemptions. There may be other parts of the rule, though, in terms of supply chain traceability and the types of documents and records you'll need to keep. And we will have some follow-up presentations as we go through this really massive rule that can talk about some of those other things. But in terms of exemptions, it looks like you all are already certified and the exemptions wouldn't apply for you all.
Yeah, I can only think of other entities in the supply chain that perhaps your supplier is getting coffee from. Importers will have to be certified, other handlers that may be in the supply chain, but that will be for your supplier to work out with the folks they're getting, or maybe they're an importer and already certified. So, yeah.
Thank you. We have a question. What about the European equivalency ruling? Is it still being honored? Yeah.
Yes, the equivalence with the European Union is still intact. However, the USDA is going to renegotiate the equivalence with the European Union for two reasons. One, Europe is also implementing the biggest change to their organic regulations, as well as this significantly changing the USDA, some parts of the USDA organic regulations. And so it's my understanding that the existing equivalence will remain in place until a new equivalence is negotiated, and that will be announced when it's ready.
Thanks, Beth. We have another question in the chat. Until March 24th, is Ecuador still handling the certification? And Giselle, if you wanted to unmute or elaborate further on that question, that'd be great.
Okay, we're only exporting. So the question is, do we keep the way we were doing? We were certified, our people were certified, the receivers were certified. So I'm trying to see what's different for us.
It sounds like there may not be a lot of changes if your supply chain and the supply chain you're working with is already certified. There may not be a lot of changes for your operation in particular, and QCS Ecuador will continue certification. Of course, there will be changes in our program to comply with the new regulations, so you might see some updates in your organic system plan application, but
Okay.
continue to work with the Ecuador office.
Okay, very good. And all the information that you just provided now, is it available online for our quality to read and see if we're okay? What is
Yes.
the link?
Yes, we will make all of this information available on the QCS website. QCS, okay. www.qcsinfo.org.
QCS what?
info.org.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I just put in the chat where this where the links to this video will be once we have that ready. Next question. How soon will we be able to start applying if we will be required to certify as a handler? Is there a deadline for applicants to apply?
I can take that, and you can apply this afternoon if you would like. There is not specifically a deadline to apply. There is a deadline to be certified. What was it, March 24th? And the which not 23 days, but 1 year and 23 days. So the application process can take some time. We may have some questions once we receive your application. We will have to do an inspection. So all of those processes will need to be finished, and a positive certification decision will need to be made and executed before that date. So hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you very much, Brian. Quick question about our supplier for the organic panela. The panela company imports organic panela that are packaged into 20-kilo bags into the USA. They store the panela in those bags on 50-bag pallets in a warehouse in Miami. Then we pick up the pallet from the warehouse. Does this company have to be certified organic?
So Sue, I believe in order for us to get the most information about your situation, if you wouldn't mind emailing us this request, and we can work with you to make a determination about that. I wouldn't want to say one way or another without knowing the full picture. But if you would send this to us in writing, we are certainly able to help you out.
Again, I'll echo what Leslie said earlier. The NOP tends to lean towards certification and these types of complicated questions. And importers, I think that regardless of other activities and other exemptions, that importers will need to be certified.
And I have just dropped our email address into the chat. You can feel free to reach out to us at that address. And if you have any further questions, we can help you answer them. And Brian has mentioned in the chat that we can usually do expedited certification if the 100-day turnaround time is not fast enough. Are there any final questions anybody would like to ask? We are at the 54-minute mark. And so if there is nothing else, we'll be wrapping up. Okay, well, I don't see anyone, any new questions coming in. Thank you all for being here. I know that we've got a few non-QCS clients in today with our presentation. I am I am curious if anybody would like, if you're not one of our clients, would you mind raising your hand so we can see who's attending and make sure we've got, we'll have all of our links very publicly available. And we want to make sure that we are thanking our clients for attending. Thanks all of you for being here. We're excited about all of the changes, all of the big changes, and hoping to get all of you the information that you need. All
Well,
right.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It was great to see you here. I hope this was helpful to you.
Yes, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.